Hi, Scott Orlin with CINEMA-Magazin. The movie is called Barry Seal, and the man responsible for it, director Doug Liman. Congratulations.
Hi. Thank you.
This is one of those movies that if somebody told you the story, you go, God, what a work of fiction. And yet, it's based on reality.
It is, but I imagine today, people sort of understand that reality can be crazier than anything you could make up.
So let's just kind of dissect a little bit of this. I mean, obviously there's some dramatic license taken with it. And I understand that there was actually really good source material that you had about Barry's life that you could kind of tap into. So what was the starting point to really jump into telling his tale?
Well, it started with a screenplay by Gary Spinelli that producer Brian Grazer sent me, and it was this tale of this pilot, and this was recruited by the CIA to fly these missions in Central America, and he realized there was, by definition, the CIA recruits people who are rule breakers. And they were picking pilots out who, he worked for TWA as an airline pilot, but he'd been breaking the rules there, and they picked him out. Specifically, they didn't pick the pilots who were following the rules, they picked the pilots who were breaking the rules. And then they got what they asked for, because he started taking advantage of the situation and bringing drugs back in the empty airplane when he was done bringing guns down to Central America. And that's really what hooked me into the story, was the idea of this rule breaker.
And you kind of embody him with one of the quintessential straight-laced good actors, Tom Cruise, who just coincidentally happens to fly planes himself. How advantageous was that?
Well, I really wanted to create action sequences with airplanes that were like the car chases I did in Bourne Identity, but with airplanes, which is really hard to figure out. But I tell you, it's way easier when you have a star who can fly an airplane and who's a great pilot. So Tom does all his own flying in Barry Seal, all of it. There's never a double, and it's all real flying. But also, Tom's, and outrageous stunts. When he climbed into the back of the airplane and there's nobody in the cockpit and it's diving towards the ground. I mean, I was in a helicopter filming him, and I'm like, it's terrifying. But truly, where he's most fearless is in choosing to take on a role like Barry Seal. That's like the opposite of what you think of when you think of the brand of Tom Cruise.
But it's fascinating, too, that this takes place in the 1980s, and yet there's a parallel, I mean, maybe it's historically always a cycle that's keeping it going, of the political accuracy of what's happening today. Does government always do crazy, strange things, and this movie, in a way, is just like a mirror or a warning lesson?
I mean, government does, like the rest of us, the government does some really stupid, crazy things. And in particular, when you talk about covert activities, one thing that happens is suddenly you don't have oversight, and then, crazy things start happening. And in a way, in the case of the flying of Barry Seal, like, we were keeping that secret from Americans, what he was doing and what the CIA was doing. Like, the rest of the world knew what we were doing. The only people in the dark were Congress and Americans, and in a way, it's because it was so stupid.
Well, hopefully lessons have been learned. People will see this movie. Doug, I thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. And this is Scott Orlin. Until next time. I know, it's
Thanks,
fascinating
Scott.
to me.